61-year-old Khamisa has no one from her family to take care of her. She became separated from her 4 children and most of her grandchildren when she was forced to leave her home village because of fighting between government and opposition forces. She says it was government soldiers who shot at civilians in the village of Lania.
They were shooting at people with their guns. The Dinka soldiers were killing people. There was no way for me to run. If I ran to the bush, they would kill me there.
Khamisa is one of hundreds of thousands displaced from the Equatorial region over the past year. The region was stable even when civil war started less than 3 years after South Sudan gained independence. But fighting in the capital Juba last year after the signing of a peace agreement has spread to the region. As fighting spread, so did reports of soldiers of killing civilians based on their ethnicities, as well as raping women and recruiting child soldiers. The UN warned of ethnic cleansing. South Sudan's war has resulted in the deaths of thousands and displacement of millions. Fighting, especially in the Equatorial region, has resulted in a refugee crisis that is now classified as the largest in Africa and the fastest growing in the world. While most of the displacement around the Equatorial region was after the violence in Juba last July, people fled before that. Human rights organizations say people had no option but to seek refuge in neighboring countries. Government forces, and to a lesser extent the opposition, attacked civilians and burned down villages in their struggle to control territories in the region that was once the breadbasket of the country. Government forces say a few undisciplined soldiers are involved in the accusations of civilians being killed.
We would like to acknowledge some cases that came to our attention, and those were cases that were committed by individual soldiers. We have been treating them as isolated cases, and we took measures against those involved to ensure that the image of SPLA is not tarnished by a few.
Humanitarian organizations say as the conflict continues, so will the rise in the displacement.
What we're increasingly seeing at the moment is this moving from internally displaced to people increasingly becoming refugees. And I think this is really a recognition that the conflict is not going to be resolved anytime soon, and people are making much longer term decisions. If we continue to travel on this trajectory, we'd be looking at a year from now, possibly as much as half of the population being displaced, which is a catastrophe.
Khamisa doesn't know if her children and grandchildren survived to make it out of the country. Her hope is that they did manage to find a new life elsewhere when life in their own country is threatened. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Juba.